opportunities for strengthening education post-COVID of the ERES Education Seminar. My name is, I am Małgorzata Marzek, and I will be chairing this session, which will run for 75 minutes. There will be 4 presentations, and every speaker will have around 10 minutes for their presentation. The presenters will be notified about a minute before the time is up. The rules will be the same as in the previous session, so the questions to the presenters will be asked at the end of the session. The first talk will be presented by Peter de Jong. Peter, the screen is yours.
Yes, it already was, but I'm working in the challenge of doing multiple screens, multiple sessions, and what you see, what I see all the time. So it's challenging, but I think you can hear me and you can see the presentation.
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah, we hear you and we see the presentation.
Okay. And then I can even move from here to the presentation. That's nice. So it's called Thinking Out of a Blender. And well, it's quite literally the thing you see over here. And the feeling I have is always whole situation that I'm trying to crawl out of this thing. And well, it's been quite an experience, especially doing this with the course. I always thought about it, actually. So it is. I love this picture. It is the image of one of the products of one of the teams last year when we had an area development in Rotterdam. Actually, it was a huge one from, if you know Rotterdam, from northeast to the south, and went all over the place. And this is a picture from only a professional part of it, but a very important picture for me, showing the development around the Feyenoord city. And you see a stadium which apparently will not be there, and you see projections also apparently will not be there because the discussion at the moment is about a tunnel, and the stadium is depending on the performance of Feyenoord, and they are not doing that good. But it's about the blended elements of such course. Actually, the students making this presentation, this vision of the whole area development of 50 years, presented this also in our conference about environmental advisors. So the students do not only grasp a lot of blended information, but also they have to perform themselves. Just go back for a moment to the course. When I talk about course, it's referring to OM 5, the management game, and a compulsory design course in the 3rd year of the Bachelor of Architecture of 10 credits, which is a large course in our case, supported by a knowledge theory-based course, and you can do differently about the blended learning theory course-based. Was given by Aaron next to me, just an picture. He's been doing it for quite some time now. It's taken by others, but that is a course supporting our course and working closely together. Yes, so this was the course scheme, so the OM 5, M3, 3rd year. And this is the only course we give it twice a year, so I do it in September and in February, 10 weeks each. So all the course, I think it's discussed by in ERES. You will see all the citations just below, for me at least, just below behind the picture, but it's talked about before, about the complexity. And I think the complexity is also, for me, one of the issues over here. For instance, one of the things coming out of this course is they do a pitch, they do presentations, they have to do it sometimes just in the normal classroom, but of course, lately they've been doing a lot online. So by now I have a YouTube channel from with all the presentations, all the pictures, all the things sharing with each other. So in no time, 40, 50, 60 presentations from this YouTube channel, which is also again something to use in the course itself. Another side project for this course was it's called the City Deal Management Game. Also spreading out the information about the course, showing the results. Actually, what the City Deal was basically is supported by the cities in the Netherlands, especially the cities which I work with. You see them over here: Rotterdam, Delft, Schiedam, many others. And what they would like to show in this project is the good collaboration between actually the university and the cities, the majors, the boards, the development boards of the cities. So, and actually this course is a splendid example for them and for me, because in the end the cities gained a lot from this course, and my students gained a lot from this course. So it makes it very practical, very realistic. But where I'm heading to, of course, is it adds a lot to the complexity of everything. And every time, for every city, the results are spread by seminars, or just handing over the digital result. Last time it was about 12 gigabytes, which I dropped on the desk of the Rotterdam authority. This is all side stuff because I have to communicate with the students with a digital learning environment. Nowadays we use Brightpad, before that Blackboard, and I assume all universities are using something like that. And within this whole range of how to communicate, learning, teaching is about communication. This digital learning environment, that also a lot of it's very important how to distribute all the information, all the documents. I think at the moment there are about 400 documents for the students, so much more than anyone can digest in 10 weeks. So it's also not only handing over this information, and with this information all the additional links to tools and all the courses, MOOCs, tools which they can use, but also when to use and how to use it. So there is also a news feed, and I try to at least get started to have every day a new document, a new news feed for them, that they are focusing on this part as well. A good part of this digital learning environment is also that as a teacher I can see how much of it is used. So that's one of the reasons I reduced by now the 600 only to 300 and try to get it more passed over to the students, and our teachers tell what to read and what to take at certain moments. So the point I am heading to, let's give at least some more numbers to understand the course. I'm talking about 10 to 20 group tutors, because I have that amount of groups. I have difficulty to have 2 teams. So it's about 100 in the September version, to 300 to 400 students in the February version. And I have 10 to 15 to 20 role tutors giving 10 roles, and it all comes together in a role play where they have to make this area development vision for 15 years. So only from the content part, the role part, it is not one way of blended learning, but it is, I think, every form of blended learning, every form of tools is used simultaneously by the different roles. So it is not that I can rely on one single type of blended learning. The classroom is flipped 10 times a day by different teachers. So it is the complexity which allows me to work like it. And at the same time, it's the complexity I have to share is in the system. So it's not a blended harness, but it's harnessing the course. The complexity, this picture is another illustration of the complexity, where I am moving from in a team from 8 students to 10 students. They always get stranded in the number of discussions they have to do. So if you have a team of 8 students, you can oversee the amount of connections you have within the team, all these discussions. If it's close to 10, and I'm even trying to make it on 11, you see it is it is exploding the number of discussions, the number of things you have to do with each other, and also because they also use different tools with every thing on discussion. So the complexity is growing very fast over there. If I take out one of the tools I like very much from the current situation, what was introduced by us and very negatively advised by our IT support, but still it's a very useful tool, is Miro, which is something that I can use within the team, or I can use within the role, or the teams use it. It leads pretty much on the traditional way of doing in our faculty. It's a design course, and think about it. The design course, you have to consider the tutor which is sketching and annotating on the drawings of students. And this is very well possible within the team. So with this Miro, they have multiple layers of in which they can draw, they can sketch, they can collect, they can put images towards. So it went at the time that we went into the lockdown and everyone had to work from home. It was actually one of the tools which allowed us to do the whole transition actually in a day. So from running the course at faculty to running the course in a lockdown situation, it only took one day by using all these instruments and by allowing them to exploit all the other tools we have for communication, for tool work, for group work, and so on. And what I experience at the moment is, or not yet, because we are going in a lockdown again, probably, but as soon as they came out of the lockdown, and especially when in a situation where I still had many students in a hybrid form, meaning that I had 10 students in a group and 8 at the table, and 2 still via a Zoom connection outside, and then with the video where they still can draw and work together, even if there were 10 of them at the table. They use this Miro instead of the old-fashioned paperwork. because they are next to the online part of it. It's also that you, if you do it in a display like this, it is annotated, it is recorded, it's archived. So it's also very advantage versus the old tradition. So this is one of the tools I certainly will keep. Of course, I can also make a long list of all the mistakes and failures with all different tools. So yes, data loss, input problems, sound problems, it happened all over. But so the real challenge is where we're in right now is that actually trying to keep the good parts and to get rid of the bad parts. So I know this quotation from many occasions, like reviewing scripts, but it's also about all what is happening to us with the whole blended learning approach, with all the online approaches, with all the additional new tools. Within my love of a course which is complex by default, I want not one single solution, but I want all these different solutions and be able to take out the good ones and to get rid of the bad ones. So your manuscript is both good and original, but part of that is not good, that's good is not original, and part of this original is not good. So make a proper selection, or like they say the same thing more or less in Germany. Dein Rein zählt das Buch, die manchmal neu ist, war es, war das Wahre nur neu, wäre das neu nur wahr. Also there is, my German is getting as close as now, but also there try to find the good parts and the things you can keep from it. Going back for a moment to the blended learning aspects. Of course, there are much things very good in it, but one of the, for me at least, it was in my course, one of the most false arguments is that it is time saving. Yes, of course, I think that blended learning tools can be time saving if you have a lot of repetition. But actually, what I do is every time, every day is new. So the blended learning, the digital aspects are only or are still they are helping, but they're for sure not time saving. If I look back to the early pitches, in a day, all these groups learned how to make a video pitch on television quality, and at the end of the day, they succeeded, and they were exhausted at the same time. It was so much, and in the end, only for 3 minutes work and unique.
Sorry, Peter, 1 minute left.
Okay, and I have one slide left, and that is, I think the remarks before were actually the closing remarks about the situation, and but it's not so good as it sounds actually. My real problem is that my students are very vulnerable at the moment. It's a very woke work environment. It's more difficult today than before the lockdown to give comments and feedback to each other. The level of distrust is high. Students and again also students and teachers. It seems that after the isolation they learn to work together again in all the different modes. Of course, this was always the case that they have to learn to work together, always on professional level, which is one of my most important learning goals. Is not something that you get from natural part. So every version, every case, you have to improve the course, make it a bit better. And I think that my real challenge at the moment is to deal with this situation, this vulnerability, that they are vulnerable, that they have to learn again to have a critical step and without too much negative pressure. So that is the real challenge for me, and at the same time, I would love to embrace all the tools, all these things, and make my own selection how to work with it. That's about it, and I will share all the links and quotations later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Now we are going to the next presenters. The questions will be at the end of the session, as I mentioned before. The second talk will be presented by Claudine Speltz and Lucia Verratti. Ladies, you can start sharing your screen if you want.
Yes, I hope you can see my screen. Hello, everybody. I'm Lucia Verratti from the European Association of Real Estate Professionals, and I'm here today with Claudine Speltz, who is the treasurer, but also the PTC education chair of our association. So first of all, thank you for having me here. It's very interesting, like the discussion we're having, and very important also for us. So first of all, I will just very quickly present who we are. So CEPI is the European Association of Real Estate Professionals. So it's a non-profit organization that was established in Brussels in 1990. So of course we have different members association, and our members association are represent property manager and real estate agents across Europe. Here you have an overview of our current members. We have now 29 member associations, and this means that we represent almost 300,000 real estate agents and property managers in Europe, but also beyond Europe. We have members from Georgia, from Switzerland, and from UK. So today, this is, of course, very quickly an overview of our policy priorities. Of course, we discussed a lot digitalization. Today was a very important topic, especially given the situation we are living, but also we take care of energy, regulation, reputation, but also, for example, the impact of COVID in the real estate sector. And in fact, we are currently conducting a joint research project with the Poznań University from Poland. So we are and also we take care of anti-money laundering tools and of course, education. So for this reason, we would like today to present you the ERES program, which is for us, our tool, a very important tool to strengthen education of real estate professionals or future real estate professionals in Europe, but also beyond, and especially considering the particular situation we are living today. So first of all, what is ERES? In order to understand what is ERES, we have to think about, as a sort of from a legal viewpoint, the real estate market, and especially the regulation of the professions of the real estate market. As you will know, the regulation of the real estate professionals, it's up to member states. It's not regulated at European level. And this, of course, creates sometimes fragmentation, but also great differences among member states of the European Union. And of course, this mostly in the educational field. For this reason, and since the very beginning, since its creation, CEPI had education as one of its most important priorities, because of course, to have an harmonized real estate market and real estate regulation and an harmonized regulation of the real estate professions, you have to have a sort of harmonized regulation in the sector. For this reason, we have created ERES. ERES is a program which offers a sort of common background among universities, but also school, and all the educational establishments that are active in the field of real estate, of course, education. This means that we establish some partnership with our university, and we grant them a sort of certificate recognition, really in a way to achieve this sort of harmonization of the education in the real estate sector. So what are our goals very briefly? Of course, harmonize education of real estate professionals throughout Europe, as I just said, but also create a strong network of education and academic institutions that are active in this field. But one of our major goals is to build a solid community of European alumni, because especially after COVID, we have to really stress this. We have to stress also the sort of sense of belonging to a greater community. And of course, we have to establish a connection between the students and the professional world. So CEPI represents this professional world, but with EREDUC, we have also really a lot of partners, university, of course, and high school. So we really think that with EREDUC, we can create a sort of bridge between these two worlds, that sometimes this bridge is lacking. And of course, we would like to keep graduates informed about relevant policy and regulatory developments in the at the EU level. As you saw, we take care of energy files, but also of anti-money laundering tools. And many of our students today, they will of course have to deal with this important topic. For this reason, we would like to give them some updates about existing tools, and also, for example, in the field of digitalization, that so far it's way more important in the real estate professions, in the daily work. So how do you want to achieve this goal? Of course, by issuing this common certificate. So when a university or a school is part of the EREDUC program, they can issue the EREDUC certificates. This means that the student, besides receiving their diploma, of course, they will also receive this certificate from us as a sort of European recognition. Then, of course, networking events and conferences. Now also as we had to switch everything to a digital and hybrid version. But we look forward also to sort of explore this, both conferences in person, but also this digital way, because sometimes it's also easy to gather more people in a digital way. And then, of course, we have also a newsletter in which we give updates about our tools, but also important conferences to which students can participate. We always organize very interesting conferences and events, the so-called CEPI Academies, with stakeholders from the European Commission, the Parliament, but also other relevant stakeholders for the sector. And this is, of course, we can also, on this with this event, we can also issue some sort of attendance certificates. So, of course, they can be very interesting also for many students. And of course, we have exchange. So this is something quite new for us. But recently, our association presented an Erasmus project, submitted an Erasmus project, which will allow the exchange of students, EREDUC students, of course, EREDUC alumni, but also young professionals across Europe. And this, of course, in order to exchange practices, good practices, but also to really link to each other, which is something that during COVID times, of course, it's extremely lacking. And this is very important, of course, to work on that in the future. So, despite the difficulties of the COVID-19 outbreak, we were, despite that, we were really able to collect a lot of certificates, in particular 660 certificates. So this is a great success for us. It means that our community and the community of students and EREDUC alumni is growing bigger and bigger. And why EREDUC is so important? So you heard my sort of version, and now I will show you very quickly a short video of, it's an interview that we have done with one of our students, and she will tell you more about why is it important for students to participate in the EREDUC program.
We don't hear the voice.
Can read it.
You don't hear the voice, the sound maybe?
No.
Yeah,
no,
it's one of the, it's just because maybe the sharing presentation does not have this option, but it's okay, we can go on. I will just share maybe this presentation after with you. It's just a link so that you can also take a look at the video. It's very interesting to see how students really appreciate. And what Mila said in the video is really that she sort of feels that she belongs to a wider community. She can exchange also maybe ideas, but also concern with other European peers. And this is for us really what we would like to build. So who has joined us so far? We have currently 28 members, both high schools, university, and other educational establishments. I see that in the participants, we have also some of our members from Austria, but also from Spain. Of course, a big thank also to Paloma, who has invited us to present today. And of course, we hope that maybe next time there will be also your university in this slide. So we look forward to it. So how to join EREDUC? First of all, there is this formal request that has to be submitted to us, to CEPI, the Secretariat, but also to the PTC Education. After, we will evaluate if the program is compliant. Of course, there are different requirements that need to be met, but usually we can also negotiate to see if the program is relevant and compliant with our EREDUC criteria. Then, of course, there is the signature of a mission statement. And this means this is just a formalization of the participation of the schools in the EREDUC program. Then we provide the university with all the needed materials. It can be newsletter, but also brochure, and also policy paper, whatever they, of course, they need in order to participate, to be fully member. And then, of course, there is the issue of the EREDUC certificate, which is the last step. So very important to underline is that we do not require, of course, it's not something that you have to pay for at any stage. There are some programs which in which there is this requirement of paying a sort of financial fee, but it's absolutely not our case. For us, EREDUC is really and truly a mission, a European project that we want to build with our EREDUC, of course, university. So, of course, if you need more information, you can reach out to us at the Secretariat of CEPI. So we are currently, the Secretariat of CEPI is based, of course, in Brussels. I leave you here our email, and also if you need, of course, if you have any questions, I can answer them later on after the other presentation. But you can also just leave your email in the chat, and we can reach out to you in the following days if you have more questions about the EREDUC program, and hopefully if you want to join the EREDUC program. So
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we are going directly to the next speakers. And the next talk will be presented by Catherine Kariuki, Sławi Ruli, and Nikki Nizioki.
Thank you.
The screen is yours, please.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm going to start the presentation, and if you just give me a moment. We are here, and I hope you can all see this. Is it all fine?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Catherine Kariuki is also with us, so we've got a bit of a duet running here. So Catherine, if you feel like coming in at any particular point, I'm conscious of time as well. The real focus of this work has been of interest to us for a particular reason. We all went into COVID and we all responded in different ways. But I think what became more important is that the process gave us a good sense of the possibilities of the future. What if we went online or blended, what we could do and not do in an emerging context. So I think that's the first point. Secondly, I hope that this is also of interest to other colleagues, academics around the world who may have students in emerging countries or who need to run courses outside of the European Union and elsewhere. It portrays a discussion that the University of Nairobi and the University of Cape Town have been having for quite a time. And Nikki Nzioki, I don't think Nikki's with us, participated in this as well. So this is a reflection of a survey that was undertaken across our 22,000 students at the University of Cape Town. And it included our postgraduate and undergraduate students. And you'll see the cohort, the survey responses and the cohort who received it and what the response sort of looked like. And it included postgraduates and undergraduates. And I think there's an important point that we always have to bear in mind, and that is that the experience for postgraduate students is often very different to a first-year undergraduate student. You know, they've been in business, been on Zoom meetings, have learned to work in a team environment, which often our first-year students, of course, would not have had, the undergraduates. So the focus of the study was to improve design course, to say, hey, what were we doing? How could we improve on things, to improve support for students, and to undertake a bit of an exploration into the possibilities of the future. And as of course, we always have to be careful that our students don't become the guinea pigs of every survey. So this went to the appropriate ethics approval. So what actually happened was this: as many universities across the world, we hit March 2020 and everybody was sent home. Now, home for many people is a very, very different place to the university environment, which I'll go through. And what became interesting is that our first response was to go into emergency remote teaching. I think there was a full appreciation that we didn't have the technology. I think this morning we already discussed some lectures were ahead of the game, some were behind the game. And so to avoid from calling it online education, we just called it emergency. It just gave us that space to experiment in with that. And by the way, where it became interesting is that as we progressed into second year, the expectations of students became higher and higher. The emergency game wasn't going to fly in the second year, when in the first year we could possibly have got away with it. I think it became very clear to us very quickly that synchronous wasn't going to work. To have students online, and not only, and I don't want to go into the problems that we face, not only having the data problem, but power outages as well. You suddenly have somewhere where the power has gone down, where the student can't participate for the next hour. Now try doing that in an exam scenario as well, which leads to, in our case, we took a view of not leaving anyone behind. No one was going to be left behind in this experiment. No one was going to be left out, to the degree that we provided laptops. We actually provided hardware to quite a number of students who didn't have it. And that's apart from the data. Our new version is not emergency teaching, but has become physically distanced learning, which we'll talk about. So our students left, and this is where they ended up across the entire country within a few weeks. You got Cape Town at the bottom, on the right hand you got Durban, and you have Johannesburg in the middle. And of course, in the three centers we were okay, but the big problem we faced was, what were we going to do with all the ones in all the other dots? And so at the survey, we started trying to determine, which was a fairly large survey, where the problems were. And it became very clear. First of all, as you can well imagine, unreliable internet connections. But then it became quite interesting that about 54% of the students lacked quite study space. And I think that one of the issues that maybe comes out of this debate is the relationship between education and locality. The physical environment in which students work, where the university provides an environment, and the moment they're at home, they find themselves in a very different scenarios. What also became very clear, 71% of students actually felt that they had anxiety, stress, depression, mental health challenges, and so forth. So I think there is a view, yes, everyone goes off working in their own environment, but I think what we sometimes don't appreciate is those anxiety, not knowing where you're. As a first year student said to me recently, he said, the problem he faced is that he couldn't pitch himself in the class. If you're normally in a class, you know where you stand with your knowledge vis-a-vis your cohorts, and that you start losing that. And then you'll see a few other issues that came to the face. So I think the first issue is, of course, the internet, where people worked, with all sorts of other issues, family and caring responsibilities. And I think there's a gender issue that played itself out as well, especially a lot of our female students found themselves back at home, involved in duties that parents were expecting of them, or the family was expecting of them. So I think that let's not underestimate the age, the gender issues that do come out of here for quite a number of students. The online experience, Catherine, I don't know, and I'm conscious of time, whether you want to do it. Otherwise, I will quickly go through that, but feel free to add. Look, it comes back to the issues. The issues of localities, poor networks, electricity going down, don't have phones, laptops. And by the way, you also have the situation where a lot of the lecturers don't have laptops. So for example, at the University of Nairobi, lecturers are expected to buy their own laptops. It's not given to you by the institution. So you can imagine the scenarios that we, and of course, now you find yourself students also saying, well, you know, I'm going to combine work and education rather than necessarily being more focused on education. And then you have parents taking certain attitudes on online learning. So I think you pick up some of these experiences from the University of Nairobi. What also became clear to us is that it depends what faculty you're in. So EBE is where we are in engineering and the built environment versus commerce. And I think it's an issue that I raised as well, that depending what faculty you are, you've experienced different problems. And the problem that some of our students have is that they function across faculties, 2 or 3 faculties. So now you have a certain faculty that has gone one route, another faculty goes down the other route, and you start picking up the problems, or the requirements that they need in one faculty would be very different in another. But I think the red dots once again brings out the issues. What also, and this became clear to us, and I think it comes back to a point that I think we've already made here, and that is it differed whether students were in residence or not. So the one thing that we did actually in 2021, we didn't insist that the students were back at the university, but we insisted that they were back in Cape Town. They had to be in the city of the university. And there were good reasons for that, to say, yes, we're online, but we started running our tests and exams face to face. And we started saying, we want you on campus from time to time on very specific issues, and those were not negotiable. You had to be present. So it wasn't a question of being on campus, but it was being on res. And so—
Sorry, 1 minute left.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. I've got one. The question of data comes to its scale, comes to the clear. Most students needed about 30 gigabytes to run their show. What became nice is that the cell phone companies came to the party and gave free 20 gigabytes to our students. So most of our students had a bit of space. This is the cost of, which we're still one of the more expensive countries in the world. Well, certainly in Africa. Let me skip quickly to the last 2 slides. The university, our common framework going forwards, I think both the University of Nairobi and ourselves have gone into come back to town. And I think it's an issue which I'd like to explore is the idea of a low density campus. To say, we're going to have people back on campus. They won't be as dense. We won't have them in the class as much as possible. But the role of the campus in an online world and what we will be doing, it may well be that we have students in residences interacting still socially and from time to time with us. The exams issue became critical. So just looking at future, if I may, I think I may just be over a minute, but this is my last slide. Let's take cognizance of context. Apply the appropriate technology. And I think what we are really battling is what is the minimum technology that we can play with. Enhance engagement. Focus on the ability of staff to deliver as well as students, multi-pronged, multimedia pedagogical challenges, the importance of the place of learning, low density campuses, and I think where we're also going to have a challenge is that even as university we move forward, the question is, will our schools move forward and what will be the preparedness? So in conclusion, what this did bring to the party it probably brought to the fore even more the disparities between students. But I think what it showed us going forward, the role of the campus going forward, and I think where our survey and the work that we've been doing really shows is what the possibilities are and what the possibilities may not be in the short term. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the last but not least talk will be presented by Corrado Cerruti, Simone Ferretti, and Gianluca Matarozzi. The screen is yours, if you would like to share the screens. Share the slides.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you see the screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so thanks for the invitation to the education seminar. What I will do today is to provide you our experience about teaching with a gamification approach in a blended scenario. So what we will do is to present you what we have learned during the last year about what are the opportunities, but also the risk related to using these tools in a blended scenario. The team of the people involved in the project are myself, Gianluca Matarocci, and I have an expertise on real estate and finance. Corrado Cerruti, that is full professor of management, and Simone Ferretti, that is an IT guy, specialized on digital education and so on. It seems that is a strange team, but later on you will understand why we have such an heterogeneous team for running this type of activity. Before starting talking about our project and our idea, only a plot that told us what is the future or what could be the future. If you look at the statistics or the forecasts that are available nowadays about blended activity and so on, especially when we talk about master program or training programs and so on, it seems that this blended activity could be an aspect that has to be managed in the future because it's requested by the market. And also the gamification seems to be an activity that matters in order to provide an opportunity to work in a virtual scenario, trying to do some choices that you will do in the real world. What we are trying to do in our school is try to use a tool that is a near-T simulation. What does it mean? Enterprise resource planning simulation. The idea is to have a view about a company and try to understand for this company what can happen by doing a game. Essentially, this game is working with a software that almost every one of us knows, that is SAP S/4HANA. That is a software used worldwide for managing companies. And by using this software, it's possible to have access to some simulation activities, simplified simulation activities that you can do for teaching your students about how to use the tool, but also how to make choices in your company. Our idea is that by having this focus on a company, we can stress some items or some information that matters the most for us. For the game that we have, so the simulation that we can run, essentially we have a provider that is from Canada, HEC Montreal, that is providing us 4 types of games that we can run with our students. And we can focus in each game on some issues that are relevant for us. The issues are not only related to real estate, some of them are related to real estate, some of them are related to finance, some of them are related to innovation and so on. So we have an heterogeneous team because the games are not focused only on one topic, but they are focusing on what can happen to the business by looking at different points of views. So what are the real estate issues that you can point out or you can study during this type of games? For example, you can study what is the advantage that you can have for your company to have a distribution point in an area with respect to another by analyzing the preferences of the area and by analyzing the data that you have for studying the preferences in the area. So what the students can learn is how to make an analysis of the market in order to understand if it's profitable or not for the company to create a storage location in the area and try to serve the market. What else can be done by using always this type of game is to try to think about the supply chain and try to think about the distance with respect to the suppliers. What you can do by using the game is try to understand if it's always better to look for the cheaper supplier or try to establish a stronger relationship with suppliers that are nearby to you and are able to deliver the goods in a short time. So what we can provide them is not a tool that allows them to evaluate a real estate asset, but we can provide them a tool, a game, that allows them to understand when a real estate choice may matter for the company point of view. What I want to provide you during this short presentation is our experience about running this type of games in a blended mode. Why I can do so? Because we started with this project in 2019. So we had in 2019 the opportunity to run it in presence, face-to-face. In 2020, we were obliged to run it fully online. In 2021, we were able to move to a blended solution and try to understand if the blended solution is better than the virtual one and is comparable or even better than the face-to-face one. The approach that we are using is an approach in which we have essentially a room on Microsoft Teams in which the students can work remotely. Plus we have a physical room in which the students, if they want and if they can come and work together directly from the room. Essentially, we have a calendar scheduled for a month of meetings related to the game. We have a general meeting in which we, as instructor, we interact with the students. We don't interact in presence, so we interact only remotely. And the students, if they are not in presence, they can interact by using their own group meeting. So without interacting with the other people that are in the same room or without interacting with someone else that is around, they have their own group meeting and they talk each other in a room in Teams, okay? The idea is to focus on strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats that we found by using the hybrid solution with respect to the face-to-face and the virtual one. What we can point out as main strengths. When we do let's say, a virtual or a blended solution, essentially we don't have constraints about the number of computers available, the availability of the computer room. And so for us, it's easier to schedule the calendar on the basis of the needs of the instructors. Otherwise, if you have, like in our room, more than 100 students attending, you have some problem in managing them or having them all together in the same room. Normally, the students are more comfortable of using their own computer, especially if they are Mac user, they love to use their computer, and so they prefer to have all the apps they have in their own laptop. And students are, if we are running the hybrid mode, are more flexible also if they cannot be in the campus for any reason, because they are not in the city or they cannot reach the campus on time and so on. So essentially you can increase significantly the attendance by having an hybrid mode, because people that is not able to reach us for one meeting, they can do it remotely. Essentially, you can have also a tracking about who is attending during the full meeting. So it's easier for you to understand if they are connected and if they are working on the system. Essentially, you can set up the game in, let's say, 10 minutes, no more. So you don't need to spend a lot of time in checking the room and starting the computer, verifying that everything is working and so on. And if you have special needs students, you can give them the opportunity to join the game without any problem. So these type of students, normally they will like a lot if they can be engaged in this type of game by using an hybrid mode. Talking about the problems that you can have by running it as hybrid or sometimes also as virtual. In the hybrid and in the virtual, you don't have a face-to-face interaction, and so you have to be worried about the attention of the students. So essentially, if you are running a game like the one that we described before, normally a length of the lecture that is longer than 2 hours will never work in an hybrid or in a virtual mode. When we do an hybrid or a virtual mode solution, essentially we have more heterogeneity among the group players because they select the group by their own, and so we don't have a full control about the group composition. You have to be worried because during the game you need to help a lot these type of students in order to be sure that they don't give up. And most important, you have also to help them if they have problems related to their own computer. For example, they have a firewall that is locking them the activity, or they cannot save a file, and so on. So essentially, the number of people that has to be involved in as instructor for the game could be higher for running the simulation as virtual or as hybrid with respect to face-to-face. Talking about the opportunities that you can have by using only the hybrid solution, essentially the instructor team is more flexible and can change game by game. So you can have someone that will be involved only in some games when there are skills necessary that this guy can provide. You can increase the number of students involved. Theoretically, you don't have a maximum that you can manage. But on the basis of our experience, if you are running a game and you have more than 50 or 60 people attending, you have problems. So it's better to split the class in 2 different classes. This solution
1 minute left.
Yeah, this solution can be used for offering also virtual mobility opportunities if someone wants to do it. And the data of the simulation will be available for the user even after the game because they are using their own computer, and so they can download and access to the data when they want. There could be also an opportunity for collaborating with other opportunities with other universities offering the same type of service. But we have to be worried about how to get engaged the students, to manage if there are connection issues for the students that are connected online. You have to be worried about how to manage time because sometimes it's not so easy if you are in an hybrid mode, especially. You have to be sure that the software is available for everyone, and you have to select some software that can be downloaded for free. And you have to be able to identify assignments that allow to evaluate the effort of each individual in each group. What we can point out at the end is that blended could be a solution for doing gamification. The performance of the gamification teaching in an hybrid mode is similar with respect to virtual, but could be even better. Nowadays, the technology doesn't allow you to have the same results of a face-to-face interaction. But the advantage is that you can do large-scale offering to different people in different places of the world. And probably in the near future, you will have also better tools in order to be more effective in teaching online. These are our contact information. Thanks for the time that you spent in attending.
Thank you very much. Now we have time for questions and discussion, and I would like to encourage our audience to ask questions to all our speakers. Who would like to start? Okay, so maybe the first question will be mine. I have a question for Peter. Generally, in Europe, we can divide higher education systems into 2 types. One is based more on teaching and is dominated by many lectures for a huge number of people. For example, in Poland, we have such system. The other system is based more on learning. It is practiced for example, in the Netherlands and UK? And for which of the system will the introduction of blended learning be a greater challenge, in your opinion? Is the successful implementation of blended learning, in your opinion, dependent on the number or proportion of hours of lectures, tutorials, and seminar in curriculums? What do you think?
Well, and indeed, I'm sorry, I wasn't very clear apparently on my speaking, but so for instance, the course Aaron was responsible for is theory-based theory transfer, knowledge transfer, in fact. And that one, it works very well, and you can even say that it is time efficient, meaning that parts of it can be repeated year after year, because there are elements which are allow for repetition. And the other course I'm doing is really a design course, which and the whole content part is, of course, it's relevant, but the way I can do group work is much more important. So learning to work in groups, and that's not the idea of the other course. That's not learning to work in groups, but understand the knowledge. Okay, very well. But the group work, that's of course I can use many types of blended learning. I can, if parts of it are also in a classroom, and parts of it are then spreading the news, telling the word, and of course that can be replaced by online parts. It can be twisted into let the student do the talking. The different classrooms or the other ways of working together, they all apply over there. But it's like me, it's not a clear system. This is the way to do it. But within this design course, it is that you apply the tenfold ways to do it, and at the same time by all the different roles, by all the different groups which I work there. So the complexity, think of the circle is much different than the and I do completely agree with keep it easy claim from for instance Francois. If you have this blended learning and to keep it as simple as possible and understandable as possible, because that's the transition is then the issue, and then the repetition can be a gain. But for me, for the design education, then the complexity is the issue to learn together, to work together. So of course I can still use a lot of it, but at the end of the day, and I think I still have this 71% of Francois on my the 71% of students with health and mental problems. I think for me that's a real issue. I even believe that in a traditional knowledge transfer, it is a challenge to have this feedback more in more sympathetic way. But for my course, it is mental problems of students are actually at the moment on top of everything.
Thank you so much. If I noticed correctly, the second question was from Annette. Am I correct? Annette, could you read your questions, please? Please.
I just wrote it in the chat, but it would be great if Gianluca would reply to that. It's about what does it take to set up such a game? I mean, in time and costs. To be more precise, how can it be shared or used for others? I mean, sharing resources or something like that. I mean, I'm seeing that it takes a lot of time to play it, so you have to have the time in your curriculum. but it would be very interesting to know a little bit about the efforts.
Yeah. So the idea is the following. Once you know how it works, in order to prepare a new game for a new lecture is not so time consuming. So the system is quite user friendly. And so in 15, 20 minutes, you can set up a new game and you can be ready to do it. The system is managed by this university in Montreal, so ERES Montreal, and they are charging you a fee for each student that you want to have in the room. What does it mean? That if I have a room of 15 students, I have to pay 15 fees. But I can use these 15 fees for running a game also in another, let's say, course that I will manage later. So what matters is how many students you will have at the same time connected to the system. And that's the information they need in order to provide you the pricing. Once you do it, essentially you can use this license for you or for offering courses for 6 months. After 6 months, you have to renew everything. In order to give you an idea, they are offering a license, if I remember correctly, at a price of 50 Canadian dollars per user. That's the price they are applying. But you can, if you have several courses at the same time, it could be economically reasonable to do it. If you have only one course, it's true that probably it's too much expensive, and so it's not reasonable to do it. But if you have several programs in the same semester, you can do it, you can decide to do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have other questions?
Yeah, maybe I had a question.
Yeah, but the question is answered. It's already answered by Gianluca.
So maybe I have a question to Lucia. Could the mentioned network of universities be used to establish cooperation not only among students, but also academics? Is it possible that the list of subjects offered by CEPI universities are, for example, visible for all members so that lecturers could establish cooperation and exchange educational experiences? Would it be possible?
Thank you very much for your question. So everything is also accessible on our website. You can see all our partners. If there is any particular person or you would like to reach out, you can always ask us, because it's really what we would like to do. So to establish this connection and to be able also to exchange also practices, because, for example, we have a special committee which is dedicated to EREDUC, in which we have a representative from university from Austria, for example, from Luxembourg, from Belgium, and they always discuss the best way also to put in contact universities. And this can be done also by meeting, for example. So absolutely, it's just really a network that we would like to create. Then if you want to establish other cooperation with a certain specific university, it's also a good occasion to do that, to work, for example, on specific topics, for example. So what we can do is that, of course, once we have our network, then we all know each other. Of course, before COVID, we were meeting also each other, and that was easier. Now it's, of course, a digital way to do that. But you can always, of course, reach out to other universities if there is a project that they are working on. For example, as I said before, we had this university from Poland, Poznan University. They are working on a joint project, on this project in which they try to establish the effect of COVID on the real estate sector. This can be interesting also for other universities. We are collaborating with them. And of course, it's really up to building this sort of connection. Then we just provide a sort of bridge, we can say, between all of them.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think we have a time only for one more question.
May I add something that what Lucia's
Yes, of course.
explained? So our university is in the system, right? And our experience is that the students are very interested to have these certificates because the certificates allow them to move across Europe and European countries to develop their work and take more experience. So it's very interesting from this point of view. But from the other point of view is from the university as such. So we can propose our studies specialize or focus on real estate. So the requirements covers, I think, 120 credits. So this allow most of the titles, different degrees, to be inside the system. It's 120 credits with the common core, real estate core that CEPI is harmonizing across Europe, and you can have another credits for specialized studies. For instance, in our case, the degree which is accepted by CEPI to the accreditation is building engineering, and building engineering has some specific part in which we teach the students in real estate, specific real estate. So we cover all the requirements. The requirements are basic requirements for the general knowledge in real estate market for students, and our students have the possibility to be recognized any part in Europe. So our experience is very positive. It's just to give my feedback.
Thank you so much. And if I may, I would like to have a last question for Francois. It seems to me that the hybrid education is the new normal. On the one hand, it allows, of course, keeping a distance, so it is introduced for health reasons. On the other hand, for example, in Poland, the authorities of universities are beginning to perceive it as the possibility of acquiring additional students, especially international students. So it is introduced also for economic reasons now. Is it the same in Kenya and South Africa? Do you know anything about it?
The classroom is no longer limited by the number of seats that you have.
We don't hear you, sorry, properly.
Wait.
Now it's better.
Okay, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, sorry. Now, look, I think it's an interesting question that you're raising. Of course, many of our courses were limited by the size of the lecture room. And the question, once that disappears, how do what do you do next? We've actually even been thinking along the lines of, do we accept more students at first year and keep them online and then bring them onto campus? If they get through first year online, then bring them onto campus in second year or third year, which allows us to open up the game possibly and give more people a chance online where we would have excluded them. So I think that issues of that sort are important. I think the other thing, of course, is that those who are involved with student housing see the horror of this, but I am far from convinced that this is the end of student housing. And I think it's an issue that I've raised. I think that even if we go online, the question is, it's the role of the campus. Where does that role, what is that role? And as you saw in our presentation, we took a view very strongly that you had to be back in town. So even from a gaming thing where we would never have the technologies in the hand of the students, we could do it on a campus by putting them in a computer lab or getting them involved. It may be slightly different. So, it is, I think it is that sort of role. I think where it also becomes interesting is that you can get more students, but if I may say, you can also lose students. Why should somebody come to the University of Cape Town or Nairobi when they could go to a European university or other universities? So I think there is a risk that with the online world, that you could lose some of your better students in particular. So I think it doesn't leave us neutral as far as where students go. And, you know, suddenly studying in Europe has become a lot cheaper if you don't have to live there. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And the last comment, Annette, please.
Sorry, but I wanted to pick up what Francois was saying. And this question, I mean, it's so important, the role of the campus. And I think it's something we need to research much more systematically at the moment and for the future than we have done. I attended a discussion of 3 or 4 people who engage in workplace design but the session was about universities. Interestingly, they did not include any professional professor or somebody from the universities, and they talked about what they think how the campus of the future would look like. And it was frightening I mean, there was so much nonsense and not knowing about the needs, but I do think that, I mean, there is no right answer to that. It's something we really have to discuss, considering the new opportunities, chances, risks, and so on, as Francois has said. So there's probably not the easy answer to your question, Francois, but I do think that we have to address that in the same way as we are looking at how office is changing at the moment and what is the role of the office. It's just the same question, what is the role of the campus? But nobody talks about that systematically at the moment. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's true. I'm afraid we have reached the end of this session. Many thanks to all the speakers, participants, and organizers, also for giving me the opportunity to conduct this session. See you after lunch break at the next session, which starts at 12:45.